What is going on, everyone out there in fantasy land? I am Jack Neary from fantasyfarmsports.com. Today, we're going to be giving you our fantasy wide receiver top 5. We'll also be moving throughout the season doing which guy would you rather? Would you rather this guy or this guy outside of the top 5, top 10, top 15? Because we want to give you information based on day-to-day camp talk, right? We've got certain things happening in camp. Ooh, which guy's hot? Who's the quarterback favoring? All those fun things. And with those things that transpire, right, that's when you have to figure out, oh God, am I going to draft this guy over this guy? We just had something happen the other day quickly that DeAndre Hopkins is now banged up and will be out 4 to 6 weeks. Things like that are going to move guys down lists. And consequentially, things like that also help a wide receiver like Calvin Ridley on the same Tennessee Titans team, which is being discounted. I understand the not so much love, but we'll get to all things like that as we march through fantasy football off season. Guys, before we get started today, I just want to talk about our sponsor, GridironHelmets.com. Fantastic guys. They specialize in high school helmet decals and custom mini helmets, display cases for your helmets. And, what's really interesting is I know them personally, and what they do is they take a lot of time with finding out the things that you want to have done for your helmets, for your display cases, chin straps, all that stuff. They want to make sure it's customized so that it looks good, when you're showing it off to people. And speaking of showing it off to people, they were kind enough to make a helmet for me. Right? So it's got my website right there, which is fantasyfarmsports.com. Right? They put it around the edge of it as well. Look good that looks. And then they put our emblem right there. And again, they asked us how we wanted it done. I came up with certain ideas, and then they added a little bit of flair themselves, right? They wanted to give a little bit of flair, so they gave me the handlebar mustache right there next to the one that I have. So anyway, go over to GridironHelmets.com. Fantastic guys. They'll get your order done properly. It'll feel like you're working with one of your buddies, right? And that's what you want. You want somebody that takes just enough time, but then gets the job done, right? I don't need you lollygagging, but I do need to make sure that when we get this done, it feels like a project that we completed it together and we're happy with. And that's what they do over there at GridironHelmets.com. So, we're happy to be partnering with them. And it feels like one of my buddies, right? Just feels like one of my buddies that we're in constant communication. And they're going to be making more helmets for us because that's what we want. We want helmets. We've got trophies going out to our leagues. I'm pumped. I'm psyched for fantasy football season. So without further ado, let's get to our top 5 list. Top 5 list for our season 2024 headed forward. There's our first guy. First guy is JaMarr Chase. And JaMarr had, he had a tough year last year. He had a tough year because he went from the guy he thought he was going to have to Jake Browning. And, he was serviceable. But going from Burrow to Browning, Burrow can read the field a little bit better. Browning's fine. In fact, he's a great backup. But he's not a starting caliber quarterback if you're looking to get matchups for your wide receiver. And listen, I'm going to explode this for you guys real quick so we can read the stats together. 2023 at 145 targets. Monster year, especially with a backup quarterback. Right? We went from, he had 100 receptions. That's a good year. By the way, that's a good year in PPR and regular. Right? If you're in a standard league, he's fine. If you're in a PPR league, he does just the same for you. I don't think there's a big difference in those leagues. There are some people out there that believe you could take advantage either way. Longest reception, I always put that up there because how bad is he beating those cornerbacks? 76 yards, that's a fantastic run, right? I don't know how, it could have been on slant. That's how Chase is. He's a speedster who really takes care of things. Yards, 1,216 and 7 touchdowns with a backup quarterback. That's what you have to consider here. I know that Chase hasn't been perfect to start seasons off. That's a little problem that he's had as far as getting out of the gate. But I think this year with Burrow back, there's going to be a constant there's gonna be a ton of targets headed his way once again, right? We get consistency. We've seen what he's done without consistency. Now he's gonna get his guy back from college. I wanted to move him down and move other guys up. I just think that he's gonna have a much better season. And JaMarr Chase, you can load him at wide receiver 5. I also believe that you don't have to, if you have the 5th or 6th pick in the draft, let's talk about this for a second, right? And you don't get a running back, and you don't get a Jefferson, or you don't get the top guy that you think is it. Look at JaMarr Chase is a great starting point. You don't have to be nervous, right? You get the high fives in the room from everybody that's having a couple beverages with you and still eating some pizza, right? JaMarr Chase feels good, looks better. Load him up in number 5. Moving on to our 4th spot. Our 4th spot features this monster, A.J. Brown. I mean, he just looks like a comic book character. And he is. In a lot of respects, A.J. Brown is bigger, stronger, faster than everyone that's going to be covering him. You know who he reminds me of? Just even in that uniform, he reminds me a lot of what T.O. Terrell Owens was. Just a freak of nature. Get off of me. I'm throwing you to the ground. He's just physically imposing. It's impossible not to. I've already kept him in my keeper league. That's how impressive A.J. Brown is. By the way, in that keeper league, we're looking for 4 more players. So if you're interested in getting involved, just message us on Facebook, Fantasy Farm Sports, or I'm Jack Neary. So you can get on there, send me a message, and we'll set you up with the league. But I've got A.J. Brown. I really, last season, he had a great year again, right? 158 targets, 106 receptions. His longest was still really good at 59, 1,457 yards and 7 touchdowns. I think touchdowns is going north. I really do, because if you remember that Philly team last year, we do. It hurt us, but we remember it. That Philly team last year just made mistakes down the stretch. It was Jalen Hurts banged up. By the way, I heard he's destroying camp this year. I read something today where he has 132 completed passes in a row. I mean, Jalen Hurts is on one right now. I think the addition to Saquon Barkley helps him. Think about that for a minute. I don't think the tush push is going to be around. Just as long as we're being honest here, I think the tush push goes away, because the fact of the matter is that 11-0 with a banged up quarterback is not as good as 9-2 or 8-3. I need a healthy Hurts, not an injured one. I need him to throw for the downs or give it to Barkley to get those 3rd and 1s or even 4th and 1s. Ball's going A.J. Brown's way all day long. I wanted to move him up higher. At the end of the day, what happened was I thought last season he was just so good that I don't know if those stats can go any further north. But he's a set it and forget it guy. And kick back, click a glass, and enjoy the fact that you drafted a top wide receiver. 7th or 8th maybe in the first round. Depending on, listen, if you got Eagles fans, they're going to be all over this guy. So just understand that if you got a guy drafting ahead or behind you, and he's an Eagles fan, you will not get A.J. Brown. Moving on to number 3 on our slides list. Number 3, this guy needs no introduction, but he'll get one nonetheless. The guy we got here is none other than Justin Jefferson. 2023 stats, he had 100 targets. He only had 68 receptions. His longest wasn't great. His targets were fine. Yards, 1,074. That's not it's a whatever season, and 5 touchdowns. And we got to understand a few things here. Let's put this in context. Kirk Cousins got injured last year, so he was dealing with multiple quarterbacks. Nick Mullins at time, Dobbs at time. He had a bunch of different guys who he was trying to develop relationships with week in and week out. But this year, it looks like it'll be different. Mr. Justin Jefferson just got a huge contract, which he deserved. Jefferson's had a great career in Minnesota so far, and they locked him up. Okay, they brought in Sam Darnold, and I know he's not the sexiest quarterback, right? He doesn't wow you. But I'm going to tell you that what Sam Darnold does is he picks a wide receiver and sticks with him. And it's going to be hard to ignore the fact that he will be throwing at Justin Jefferson and to Justin Jefferson probably every third play. Look at Jordan Addison could be looking at a 3-game suspension based on his DUI. So what's going to happen is Darnold is going to develop the relationship with Jefferson over Addison. I think Addison's numbers got to come back a little bit this year because Darnold can't get off a number 1 target. He doesn't look off corners. He just doesn't look off safeties. He's throwing Jefferson's way. So my thought is if you got a guy that's centered around one player, there's no way that player won't perform. Justin Jefferson's numbers are going way north, probably close to, I would go probably about 165 targets. 165 targets and probably close to 110 receptions. Now, what he'll do with them is yet to be determined. But everybody out there that's afraid of Sam Darnold, but he's not great. But he's going to chuck it Jefferson's way, and he'll probably be playing behind a lot. These are great for fantasy, not great for Vikings fans. How long we get Darnold, again, will be determined. We'll get J.J. McCarthy probably midway through the season. But right now we got Darnold and we got Jefferson, and there's no need to be afraid. Justin Jefferson comes in at number 3 on our list. Moving on to number 2. Number 2, no introduction. Again, this guy, he's the fastest man in the NFL. I'm not sure. There's guys coming up that are really gaining on him. But the cheetah, cornerbacks can't touch him. There were plays last year where Tua was play action, throw to cheetah 6 yards. He figures out a way to get 15 to 20 yards. Tyreek Hill is a problem. Look at his 2023 stats. Targets, 171. That's going nowhere. That's staying the same. 119 receptions. He took one for 78 yards, and he probably laughed the last 20, given his standard peace sign, right? 1,799 yards is it's amazing. 13 touchdowns. I think those numbers will come back a little bit. Not a lot. But, that's a tremendous amount of effort and work there. He just got his a deal reworked, so they love him in Miami. I do think that average of 15.1, which I haven't really posted here, but I think 15.1 comes down a little bit. I think that targets come back a little bit. Understand, they got Odell Beckham there. And I think that as Miami approaches a playoff berth, they'll play Odell a little bit more than Tyreek. Not taking him out of games, but just giving him breathers. Last season, he had a little bit of a hamstring issue, a little bit of soft tissue stuff. And I think if you can pull back at the end of the season, you give the guy a better chance to attack people in the playoffs. And that's what I think could happen with Tyreek Hill. Again, monster year. We're really just, apples and oranges here, right? It's all these guys are going to have tremendous seasons. Which one are you going to get just a little more out of? That's all we're talking about. We're not going, oh, well, that guy's not any good. Because that's ridiculous. Number one on our list and by the way, we talk about opportunity and offenses, right? That's what we want in our players. And at number one, I've got CeeDee Lamb. The reason why I have CeeDee Lamb is, I don't know, 181 targets last year, 135 receptions. Insane. 92-yard touchdown, longest in the league last year. 1,749 yards. It's a little light of Tyreek Hill. 12 touchdowns, one less than Tyreek Hill. But his offense doesn't change. Dak Prescott is going to throw the ball in CeeDee Lamb's direction. I understand the whole camp dispute right now, which I'm not worried about, because notoriously Jerry Jones plays players. He's not going to not pay this time. He will pay these players. He'll make sure that CeeDee's happy. He'll make sure that Dak's happy. And, by the way, a little statistic here, and it's not necessarily perfect, but through the careers, Justin Jefferson has scored 30 touchdowns, 30 receiving touchdowns. CeeDee Lamb has 32. And CeeDee Lamb has 395 receptions, where Justin Jefferson has 392. There's a yards discrepancy, of course. Justin Jefferson has gained roughly about 700 more yards than CeeDee Lamb. But as long as we're talking receivers and contracts and efforts and talent, CeeDee Lamb's not very far off from where Justin Jefferson is. And the reason why I gave CeeDee Lamb the nod here is because of his rapport with Dak Prescott. Dak's going to throw the ball right where CeeDee Lamb is, and he's going to understand where defenses are playing for him and playing against him. That's the big deal here. Nothing changes. It's pitch and catch. It's pitch and catch with CeeDee Lamb and Dak Prescott. So let's review our guys before we get out of here. At 5, I've got JaMarr Chase. He will be with his best buddy Joe Burrow this season. I expect big things. I expect huge numbers. Moving on to an absolute monster, an A.J. Brown. He looks like a video game character. Terrell Owens, monster out of Philly, gonna have another huge season. Easy to draft. 3, Justin, the real deal Jefferson up in Minnesota. Gotta love Justin Jefferson getting Sam Darnold, passing him the ball. Number 2, Tyreek, the Cheetah, fastest man in the NFL, is at number 2. And at number 1, I stick with CeeDee Lamb, finishing out our top 5. Guys, enjoy the rest of your day. Fantasy off-season rolls on. Stick with fantasyfarmsports.com. We give you the best information on the web.